company Norfolk Southern to clean up contaminated soil and water at their train derailment site in East Palestine, Ohio. The derailment more than 2 weeks ago led officials to carry out a so-called controlled release of toxic chemicals, forcing thousands to evacuate. Since then, returning residents say they are feeling the effects of air and water contamination. Jeff is in East Palestine, Ohio tonight. Jeff?
The Biden administration officials, plus the governors of Ohio and Pennsylvania, were on the ground today, assuring residents here that everything is being done to clean up the area and hold Norfolk Southern, the train's operator, accountable.
Okay.
In his second trip to East Palestine in less than a week, EPA Administrator Michael Regan visited residents near the site of the derailment along the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, part of a push today by the Biden administration to ramp up the response to the disaster. Regan was joined by Ohio Governor Mike DeWine as they visited a health clinic that opened today to evaluate residents worried about symptoms from the chemicals released during and after the derailment. The EPA today also took charge of the cleanup effort, ordering Norfolk Southern to pay for it, including houses and businesses near the crash site. The EPA citing a federal law which gives it the authority to force polluters to pay. What exactly are you requiring them to do?
You know, we're requiring them to submit a very prescriptive work plan that lays out every single step that they plan to take to clean up the soil, any kind of water contamination, how they plan to transport that waste, and we're going to force them to show up for community meetings and explain themselves to the community.
The National Transportation Safety Board is still in the early stages of investigating the cause of the derailment, but today Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg proposed a series of reforms to increase rail safety, including speeding up a 2029 deadline for stronger rail cars, adding more personnel on trains and paid sick leave for crews, asking Congress for higher penalties for companies that break the rules, and revising regulations on train brakes and hazardous materials. As the Biden administration is focused on reforms, for many in East Palestine, they're still racked with anger and fear.
I came outside and I could see right away the main fire at the end of the street.
52-year-old Barb Kugler lives right next to the crash site. After the derailment, she evacuated for nearly a week, but has now returned home. She says she's nervous for this village in which she's lived for some 30 years.
It breaks my heart to go down the road and to see people who rent homes and are moving out right now. And I just hate to see that happen, but no, I don't think it'll ever be the same. I just don't.
Over the weekend, volunteers handed out bottled water to anyone who asked. While state officials have said the municipal water is safe, they urge those nearby the crash site who rely on private wells to drink bottled water. Norfolk Southern is also cleaning up local waterways where the release of hazardous chemicals resulted in 3,500 dead fish. As the cleanup continues, for some residents here, the worry is that the damage from exposure to toxic chemicals is already done. 71-year-old Daniel Clements lives about 2 miles from the derailment site.
These things are carcinogenic. And that's the kind of damage where you're exposed and something you may not notice anything for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. And then suddenly you're really ill, and maybe even your last illness. And that's worrisome. It's terrifying.
Clement says he's staying put for the time being and says Norfolk Southern needs to make it right.
They have to fix this. And some of the things that we need to do here, we can't fix ourselves. I'm not capable of cleaning up toxins. I'm not capable of reestablishing an economy. I'm not capable of keeping businesses open. I don't have those skills. That's what the town needs.
Residents here still have questions about whether the air and water are safe and about the company's commitment to address the long-term consequences of the derailment and spill. Alan Shaw is the CEO of Norfolk Southern. I spoke with him earlier today to get some answers. Alan Shaw, thank you for speaking with us. You're welcome. How long will Norfolk Southern maintain a presence in East Palestine?
As long as it takes. We're going to see this thing through. That's my commitment to the community of East Palestine. We're going to invest in the environmental cleanup. have made a lot of progress. We've got air monitoring, water monitoring. We're coordinating with the Ohio EPA. We're continuing to provide financial assistance for the citizens of this community. So far, we've either reimbursed or committed $6.5 million to the citizens of this community, and that's a down payment. And we're going to invest in this community for the long haul to help this community recover and help this community thrive.
When you say the $6.5 million is a down payment, as you know, the average income for an East Palestine family is less than $45,000 a year. We've talked to people who say they need Norfolk Southern to pay their medical expenses, to pay their moving expenses, and to pay for independent testing of wells and soil and air. Is that something that you would commit to?
We've stood up a lot of testing. Within an hour of the derailment, we had air testing. Within a couple hours of the derailment, we've had water testing. There is independent testing going on right now with the Ohio EPA and with local health officials. And there's been hundreds of tests, and there have been thousands of data points, and they've all come back with the same result that says the air and the water are clean. And we're setting up long-term monitoring, and we intend to be here for the long haul and continue to support this community.
A question about rail safety. Because in November and December, Norfolk Southern met with federal regulators and pushed back against this proposed rule that would have, in most cases, mandated at least 2 crew members on trains. Why did Norfolk Southern spend so much money, millions upon millions of dollars, lobbying against it?
What we're really interested in is solution-based safety rules, and we're very focused on following the science. And with respect to this accident, the National Transportation Safety Board, as you know, they're in charge of this investigation, and I'm very much looking forward to their results of their investigation. Once we have that, we're going to sit down and we're going to figure out what we could have done better. As you can imagine, every day since this occurred, I've been asking myself, what could we have done better? What could we have done to prevent this? So we are fully cooperating with the NTSB and the FRA on finding out what happened here. And we're going to make Norfolk Southern and the industry a safer railroad.
Following this derailment, would Norfolk Southern support having more crew members on trains, not fewer? This one had 3 crew members, an engineer, a conductor trainee. If there had only been 1 crew member on board, I'm told that as bad as this was, it would have been even worse.
I think it's really important that we let the NTSB continue with this process. There's a lot of speculation out there. And in a very unusual moment, the chair of the NTSB, Chair Hamady, came out with a statement last Thursday urging everyone not to speculate on the cause of this or what could have mitigated it. So we're going to wait and see the results. We trust the NTSB, we trust the FRA, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with our regulators and our elected officials after we get the results and working on solutions to make Norfolk Southern and the rail industry safer.
What's your assessment of the latest rail safety rules proposed by Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg? He's calling for safer tank standards, higher fines potentially for incidents like these.
I've talked to Secretary Buttigieg about this a couple of times, as you can imagine. And he's been very clear with me, his frustration over this. My commitment to Secretary Buttigieg is the same as my commitment to the citizens of this community. We're going to continue with the environmental remediation. We've got air monitoring, water monitoring set up. We have long-term plans for monitoring.
The rate of accidents on Norfolk Southern railways have increased in each of the last 4 years. There was a derailment in Detroit just this past week. At the same time, Norfolk Southern has seen record profits. And so there's this question that the company is putting profits over safety. Secretary Buttigieg has said much the same thing. How do you respond to that?
Safety is part of our culture, and it's clear that our safety culture and our investments in safety did not prevent this accident. So we're going to take a look at what occurred here and see what we can do to make Norfolk Southern a safer railroad. We invest over $1 billion a year in maintaining our network, in equipment, and in technology to make us safer.
Over the past 5 years, Norfolk Southern paid shareholders nearly $18 billion through stock buybacks and dividends, twice as much as the railroad invested in operations and its own railroad. How do you account for that, making the case that the railroad is focused on safety when you're spending twice as much money on shareholders?
We're extremely focused on safety, and over the long term, you've seen reductions in derailments, in hazardous material releases, and in injuries. You know, this is clearly a situation where our safety culture and our investments in safety did not prevent this accident. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the results from the NTSB to see what we could do better.
If you lived in East Palestine, would you feel comfortable moving back?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've been here several times, and I'm drinking the water, and I've eaten the food as I've sat down with residents of the community and heard their concerns. I know that the testing is showing that the air is safe and the water is safe. I also know that this community is frustrated. You know, when I talk to the families here, they're scared. There's a lot of misinformation out there. They